Hello there and welcome into the iGB and GGB iStudio. Joining me now, I have Dr. Eyal Loz, the CPO of RubyPlay. Welcome into the studio.
Thanks for having me. It's really exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very exciting. So you've presented the iGaming Checkup podcast
correct.
as part of the partnership with the iGaming business. We're going to turn the tables on you now and we're going to focus on slots for this, okay?
Sure.
So
Uh,
tell us, what player actions make you think humans are weird? And what of those actions keep coming up in the data time and time again?
So I actually don't think humans are weird. I like to kind of take a step back as a game designer and someone who designs product. Think of the work by Dana. Really, there's a really good book I recommend to read if you haven't. It's called Predictably Irrational. And the wonderful thing about games in general and about slots in particular is that our behavior is very predictable, and it is kind of irrational. Like we do things that might not seem sensible. Like we display uh, uh, um, uh, uh, we try to find patterns into randomness. We get you know we see patterns where there are no patterns, and we keep on doing that. We get to these kind of behaviors, and we always do those. And even as a game designer or a mathematician, and I know the odds, I know the design, but I still I still feel, when I'm lucky, I'm feeling it. The world is wonderful. The world is a good place for me today. And when I don't, I feel, there's something wrong. Because when we interact with games, it's like we interact with any environment, we feel that the games are, in a way, like a measure of our level of luck. That's how we experience reality. We get superstitious. We all do. Some of us don't want to admit it. I met some mathematicians that got really upset when I told them, I think you're also as superstitious as I am. But this is really how we are, and that's what I see the players do. And you can see it in the data as well. Like we we follow what we perceive as patterns, even if there are no patterns. And it's wonderful. Like, we are wonderful creatures, and we behave in a very rational, predictable way.
I like the positive notes. So, do you think players know why they usually like a game?
I think that for players it's always very hard to explain. This is why I find that sometimes having a players try to say why they like something, it doesn't always work. But what can work is if you can say players, like, verbalizing what they experience as they experience it. So what you find quite commonly is that they remember things that happen, not why it. So if you get someone to verbalize what they do as they do it, or how they play and what they experience playing, they'll say some things, and then when you ask them later on what happened, they'll tell you a slightly different story, like a near miss, or something that wasn't quite a win but kind of felt like a win. They remember it as a win. They tend to remember things more positively as well. So I think we should always be cautious, listening to what player wants, and look at the data, and use the tool at our disposal. There's a lot of science to back up designing games and creating product. And yeah, like, see what players do rather than listen to what they say that they do or what they say that they want. And that's really how you design good product, is to see what player do and give them what they actually want, not what they say that they want.
Mm. And have you ever launched a game thinking, this is ridiculous, and then watched it outperform all expectations?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
So it's kind of funny, like, any product person that would tell you in advance that they know that something's going to work, they're either lying to you or to themselves. Like, you really don't know. You have no idea. You always try your best. Often it's a question of really, like, keeping a high quality, but at quantity. So there's a really good a book called Originals, and in this book they explore, like, what makes successful producers, produce more successful content. It's literally they just make more of it. Like, Beethoven made 20 times more pieces than any other composer at this time, and the percentage of successful ones was the same like anyone else, but he had a lot more. But back, to for example, for RubyPlay on Koala Studio, we worked on a project, Vortex Rapid, and we were all thinking, oh, will this game work? It's really simple. Like, we really taken a game and really simplified a lot of elements of the game to just stay at the core of the experience of the game, to the point that we were thinking, are we simplifying it too much? Are we taking too much out? And it's our top performing game now. So it's really cool to see that sometimes you're not quite sure, and sometimes those really simple projects, when you can let things happen and not over design them or overthink them, they really just blow your mind, like when how well they work. Yeah.
And what's the weirdest theme or concept that has made it, or nearly made it, into a RubyPlay game?
Oh my God. So we we have a game where the theme is about literally life in prison, and it's including some, I don't know, maybe kind of sexual elements in life in prison. And we had a massive pushback from some operators that thought that this is really inappropriate, and the same time we had some operators that loved it. And I think that for us as a company with a global client base, it's really important to have like a full spectrum of content that we make. So we make some games that are really out there, and we know that they're out there, but we'll make them anyway because we know that someone might like them. We like all our games, even the really weird ones. But yeah, that one was called yeah, like slippery soap. So slippery slope, slippery soap, and life in and it's a wonderful game. It's a beautiful art, but it's not for everyone. Definitely not for.
And do you think that AI will make games more magical, or do you think it might suck the fun out of slots?
I think that the reality of AI has really two very different elements to it. There's one AI, which it's about generative AI. It's about creating art a lot faster. And with these kind of games, you find that real strong creative people that understand how to create prompts, and it's becoming a real talent. Like not all artists can use, or not all people can use AI the same way. If you're really good in creating prompts and you are very creative, you can create amazing things with it. And then you can produce arts and animations in mind-blowing speeds. So this is one way. And what I find is that probably from a player perspective, you won't see a lot of a difference. You'd still see really high quality product. And then there's the other side of AI, which is more of like, machine learning, of trying to create games that are maybe dynamically changing themselves according to players' behavior. Now, in a regulatory environment, when we make games for the real money markets, I think that these kind of games are not really relevant. Like no regulator, no sane regulator will allow players to play against an AI and create experiences like this. It's essentially just like when we at any AI-driven app, it just gets us to click and click and and scroll and click and scroll and get. So you wouldn't want this kind of behaviors with players playing real money games. So, but on the other side of it, when you've got the AI for creating art faster and animation faster, I think that what we will see is that we will have art that's produced faster, and then probably you end up having more varieties, more personalized content, not necessarily for the players themselves, but maybe games that are made for specific events, games that are made for a specific brand that might actually be a lot more relevant for players. So say, if there's a brand ambassador for a specific brand, or an event, or a wedding, a royal wedding, or something like this, you'll be able to produce games really fast that are relevant to those events. And I think that players would really dig that. So that's really, yeah. So I'm not worried about AI from that perspective, and I think it can be very magical if
And what part of your job would you happily hand over to a machine tomorrow?
everything.
Everything.
Yes, if you can sit there. Look, when the washing machine came about, right? We were all told that we'll have a machine that will wash our clothes and we'll have so much time. When the dishwasher came about, the same thing happened. When the thing is, I think that at the end of the day, those technologies come up with this huge promise of how we will just delegate everything to the machine and end up becoming But actually what we find is that we fill our time with more meaningful stuff to do and more interesting stuff to do. So of course AI is different because in some elements of what it replaces can, anything that is repetitive and menial, it can actually take out. But what I found is as a company, now we're starting to bring a lot of AI in. Everyone is so much busier. It's not taking stuff away. It's just create more time to do more things and get more creative. So yeah, I would delegate anything I can. I'm sure that I'll still have so much to do regardless.
And is there any new shiny tech trends that you secretly think are a bit rubbish, bit meh?
Well, again, I think that the talking about the AI as well, I think that what I see happening a lot, say in LinkedIn, for example, is that a lot of people use AI a bit too much. Like they let the machine, or they trust the machine more than they trust their own intuition. And then there's this joke about how an employee had to write something for their manager. So they ask the AI, hey, this is 5 points I've got, can write me a report on those 5 points. And then they produce this report, give it to the manager, and then the manager sees this long report and saying, ask the AI, hey, can you minimize this report to 5 points or understand really what it's about? So I think that we should be really cautious. Like, I think we're all inherently a little bit lazy. We all are. And again, some of us don't like to admit it. And I think that we should really make the effort not to let the machine, not to let the AI take our voice away. Like when you're about to post on LinkedIn, write it your way. When you write an email, don't use AI. No, just do it. And because I think that what happens is that we are flooded with rubbish content. And one thing I really love about the iGB podcast is that the premise was that we're gonna create good content. We're gonna create it without any AI involvement. There's no AI in scripting, no AI. It was genuine. It was authentic. It was in the moment. And I think that that's like creating real authentic content without the use of automated machines. I think it's really important. And I think that's us overdoing it is rubbish. Yeah.
And
But allowed to say rubbish?
you could say rubbish.
Say rubbish.
Yes. Is it possible to design a game that's technically brilliant, but emotionally dead?
Absolutely. Look, most of the product, most of the games out there end up failing. And the thing is, it's very hard to really predict what players would connect to, right? So I think that also the more more you have vested interest in the game, the more, say, if you have IP and you have IP holders that are quite heavily involved, even if you have a brand you work with and they want to be very heavily involved and not necessarily have the right people involved in the creation, then you can end up having a really safe project that will be completely uninteresting, emotionally dead. So I think that you can absolutely create something that looks amazing, but is not interesting at all. Because as soon as you remove that kind of like grit, that risk taking, that need of being authentic in the product you make, then you can end up having something very safe, but no one would connect to. Because in life we look connections, authentic connections to everything, to the clothes we wear, to the food we eat, to the people we interact with. So you can definitely think in all of those categories, things that would be a meal that looks amazing, but it doesn't taste that great. So you can have it in games as well.
And what's an unwritten rule in the gambling industry that no one admits out loud? Go on, admit it out loud.
Look, I think that there's many, right? I think that like no one likes talking about addiction. And I think that this is something that in the podcast we covered a lot in a few conversations. We need to take player risk seriously and make sure that we keep things fun. We don't want people, don't want people overdoing it in our product. I think that another thing is, which again I covered in one of the podcasts. This is with Alex from Alea actually. We talked about shame. and there's a lot of shame in iGaming. We even call it iGaming. It's actually, what is iGaming? It's gambling, right? We create gambling content. There's nothing wrong with it, right? But people like to call it iGaming, and many people in the industry, you ask them, what do you do? They tell you that they're in technology or they're in entertainment. They don't tell you, I'm in the gambling industry. So I think that there's all of those things that people don't like talking about. And maybe the unwritten rule is that people don't like talking about those things in front of people that are outside of the industry. So if you meet someone from the industry in a setting that is not an industry setting, they probably won't want you to be ecstatic or enthusiastic or euphoric talking about this new gambling thing or whatever. They'll probably want to keep it. So I think that these are things that I hope would change in the industry, and we'll be able to be a bit more open about them, because I think you're doing something really great here. I think that we bring real value, real entertainment for people, the people that love those kind of games, and most of us do. We create quality content and quality experience for them, and I think that we should be proud in that.
And what part of today's slot design do you think that future designers will laugh at?
I don't I think that, it's the evolution, or evolution. It's fitting well to the environment that you live in at the moment. I mean, that the slots that we have now, the games that we have now, are the best fits to the kind of regulatory environment that we have, the kind of players that we have, the kind of the global trends that we see. Slots haven't changed that much in about 130 years or so since the Liberty Bell. That was the first very simple slot machine. And I think that's, yeah, like, I would hope that in the future, when we will look on some of the products we have now, we'll think, interesting. But I wonder why they've done that. I see. Because there's a lot to be said about when we look at slots from the 70s, and we understand when they were transitioning, for example, from mechanical slots to video slots, and now you don't have a mechanical limitation on how big the reels are. You can have the reels in virtual reels that are thousands long. You can really see the revolution what the designers, they probably had the minds blown by the idea that now I can have machines that can give you $1 million prize because of I can play with the odds that's right. So I think the same thing will happen in the future. That when people would see our product, they'll think, that was the best fit in the evolution, the story of the industry, to fit that reality that we are in now. And that's really exciting. It's not all the same. People said, it's just all. No, it is amazing. It's also an amazing thing. There's so much to it today.
Thank you so much for coming into the studio, for speaking to us today. Such fascinating insights.